This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Derek Scott is the voice of South Carolina men's basketball and baseball. The Gamecocks are on their way to Fayetteville in just a little bit. You got the top 10 matchup this weekend at Paul Walker Stadium. And there are two programs that just don't see each other very much. 2021 was the last time, and we've only seen them 3 times regular season series since 2016. Hey, Derek, when's the team leaving? What are you guys up to right now?
We will get in the air at 3 p.m. Eastern and head your way, and it's great talking with you, Phil, and it'll be great to get back to Baum. I don't think we've been there since the Super Regional a number of years ago.
That's right. That's exactly right. You were one of only 2 teams to win a game at Baum Walker Stadium that was not the Razorbacks, and that included one in the Super Regional that year. Exactly right. These are 2 teams that have some similarities going on right now, probably because the first question that the coaches seem to be getting asked is about injury concerns and who's coming back and who are you waiting on and all of that kind of stuff. I know that the Carolina injuries have occurred a little more recently. So what's the situation with the Gamecocks and the health of the Gamecocks right now?
Yep. It's hopefully trending upward, but it's been a long, tough stretch here. It started in the second weekend of conference play when we lost our second baseman, Will McGillis, to a broken arm and he was hit by a pitch. He already had 10 home runs at that point. We were leading the nation in home runs. He was a big part of that. Haven't gotten him back yet, but he did pinch run Tuesday night, and he's been taking BP. It's just a matter of when he can handle live pitching and it not be painful. So we could see him back in the lineup tomorrow, as soon as tomorrow. No, they'd like that. They'd like to at least have him DHing tomorrow. So that's when we lost our second baseman. The following weekend, third weekend of conference play, Noah Hall, who was our best starting pitcher. He was throwing on Saturday, not Friday, but he was the most consistent and effective. And he went down with back injury and has not pitched since. And I'm to the point in the season now, although nothing's been said officially, I just can't imagine that he will pitch again. He has not been throwing at this point. That's the biggest. Honestly, of all the losses, that's certainly the biggest. You know all about pitching injuries, of course. And then in more recent weeks, we lost our third baseman and our shortstop to hamstring injuries. Third baseman missed a couple weeks. He returned Tuesday night, played second base. Still not, it doesn't look 100%, obviously, and rusty. And the shortstop, Braylon Wimmer, who was having just a tremendous season. He went down during the Auburn series 2 weeks ago and has not returned. And I don't suspect we'll see him this weekend. Never say never, I guess. But you got to think they're going to be protective with it being a hamstring. But all of those guys, we hope, except for Noah Hall, of course, are close. And then one of our better relief pitchers, guy with a ton of potential, Eli Jerzenbeck, he went down with an elbow injury in the Sunday game at Kentucky. And same thing as most kids, when you say elbow injury, the expectation is he's done and that he'll have to have Tommy John surgery.
Is there the feeling? There was a feeling with Arkansas baseball like 3 weeks ago when Josenberger went down, and you had Wagner out, and you had the pitching injuries that they've been dealing with all year long. There was the feeling that you just had to hold on and find a way to scratch out a few wins here and there and make a regional, and you get your guys back, and things would be okay. They've just kept winning games. What's the feeling? For Coach Kingston and for Carolina? Is it the feeling we got to hang on? We expect to get these guys back near the end of the season or by Hoover? Is that what they're kind of hoping to do? Because it's tough to hang on in the SEC, and it's just we're all surprised at how Arkansas continues to win games, patching the lineup together. And, right now Carolina's just had trouble winning games, patching that lineup together.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was when this first started really getting noticeable in terms of the severity of it, the Florida series, they went out and swept the Gators. And we were thinking the same thing. How in the world did that just happen? But then when Wimmer went down the following weekend, that seemed to be a bridge too far in terms of you just didn't have enough infield depth to cover all those positions. And suddenly you're playing your catcher at third base, and that has not been a good fit. And at the same time, when your lineup is taking a definite dip with all of those productive hitters out, at the same time, the pitching, the guys who had been there and had been pitching well, I mean, the whole collective group at once seemed to lose their way. And so you can point to the offensive issues and the defensive issues that have come from the injuries. But the pitching, I mean, there's some guys who were really getting it done who now for 2 weeks in a row have just gotten knocked around. And it's been both in the rotation and in the bullpen. And so I foresee some changes this weekend to roles. But it's not as if there are guys who you can say, okay, well, this guy's been hot, so let's give him a start. It's much more a matter of let's just move some pieces around and see if anyone responds. And so, right now you feel like holding on. Yes, now you're just trying to hold on to a host opportunity because it looks like the national seed reputation and respect has receded based on this late stretch, and understandably so. When you've lost, 6 of your last 8, including that non-conference loss Tuesday to North Florida, it's piling up. And when you finish at Arkansas and at home with a red-hot Tennessee team, there's no bonuses there, no gimmies, no help along those lines.
Carolina's hit a ton of home runs, 103. You got 5 players who have hit at least double-digit home runs, and I know McGillis hasn't been able to play much since he hit 10 homers in 24 games, for crying out loud. But is this a lineup that, like, we've seen some Arkansas teams that have been based on the home run, they've had some trouble scratching out runs without the homer. This is not one of those teams this year. We've seen in recent weekends they can play small ball. They've got clutch hitters, and there's some power as well. What's the situation with the Carolina lineup? They're built on the home run, but are they just sort of like prisoners to the home run, or are they a multifaceted lineup?
Well, I would say when they were going good, when we were, in the top 3 in the country, it was multifaceted because if you look at the national rankings, not only were we leading the nation or top 2 in home runs, but we were also top 5 in walks and in hit by pitch. So we were still getting a lot of guys on base and grinding out at bats and running up pitch counts and getting starters out early as a result of that. It wasn't just, bruiser ball exclusively. You just had a lot of guys that I think the approach was, let's be really picky. Let's not chase. And then when we get into hitters counts, then let's get aggressive and try and get a pitch that we can drive. And so it was all falling in together. But again, with the pieces that have been missing, you're talking about in Lee, Croy, and Wimmer, 2 of your better all-around hitters. When you factor in everything, not just swinging for power, but having the ability to get on base and 2-strike hit and things of that nature. And the guys you put in the lineup lately in their place, it's gone from a lineup that 1 through 9 was a headache to suddenly really being 1 through 5. And the bottom of the order just wasn't giving you much of anything. And then on top of that, Ethan Petrie had been Superman all season long as a freshman. The conversations were starting to revolve around whether he might really be more of a player of the year candidate than a freshman of the year candidate. And again, during this 2-week skid, he's for the first time all season come to earth. And, whether it's a freshman wall that he's hit or finally some people figuring out how to pitch him or just a slump, because everybody has one. It has obviously hurt this team a bunch because he was such a huge part of the offense and conference play. He was, on some days, it felt like he was carrying this offense and conference play.
Has this been sort of like has it been an unexpected successful regular season for Carolina? I don't think anybody expected them at some point to be 3rd in the country. So has this been a little bit of an early arrival for this team this year?
Yeah, I think they have exceeded expectations insofar as I thought this was an NCAA tournament team. Thought there was going to be a distinct improvement, a drastic improvement even from last year's team. But no, getting up where they got in terms of the conference race, having the best record in the league 2 weeks ago, in spite of the schedule they played, it has been more than they expected. And so that's the frustrating part is you look at the record right now, you'd take it. You'd take it 1,000 times over, you'd take it. But once you've reached higher levels and then start to spiral, it doesn't feel the same. And that's what Coach Kingston has been trying to reinforce with his guys. And you saw Tuesday some outward frustrations from players as it was all really – Tuesday night was one of those games where you're just thinking, boy, oh, boy, can we find a live chicken to sacrifice? Because it really feels like we've hit that point in the year where we need some mojo. Bases loaded back-to-back innings, don't get runs on, a ball that dies at the wall and a line drive that's snagged by a first baseman. Just all that stuff. And the frustrations that you were seeing from players, post-AB, it's the first time we've seen that. And you understand why, because it was going so well. And now you're looking around going, okay, who's going to snap us out of this? How's this going to subside? And that's the challenge. As I said, when you look at the conference standings, I never thought they'd win the division because Vanderbilt and Florida, to a larger degree, had such an easier schedule in terms of the cross-division games. I think Florida misses you guys and LSU, and Vanderbilt has a much easier, run of it. So for that reason, I always thought that was probably going to be a stretch down the final couple weeks where it really got uneven. But at the same time, once you'd reach those levels, you're thinking national seed, you're in great shape. But you didn't see losing 2 or 3 at home to Auburn coming, and then you certainly didn't see getting swept at Kentucky coming. And now you've got what you've got in front of you. You always thought it was going to be harder to win a game at Baum than it would be at Kentucky Proud Park, and it just didn't turn out that way this year.
Derek, hey, Matt Jones here. I wanted to ask you a little basketball question. How is South Carolina going to be next year, and what's kind of the outside narrative? What's the feel about this Arkansas Razorback team from the outside? We get a lot of in-state words, but what is the outside? How do y'all feel in South Carolina about Coach Musselman and this Arkansas basketball team, and is South Carolina going to be any good next year? What's the expectations for South Carolina?
It's without question a program that's still having to build, because when Coach Martin was let go and all of his roster in the portal era, they all went running. And last year, Lamont Paris had a firm belief he was not going to go for the quick fix. He had the opportunity fall into his lap with Gigi Jackson, but as far as the rest of that roster, he just wasn't going to play it that way. He has a belief in what kind of player he thinks will play in his system. And it was hard to find those guys in the late hiring process, and not having a boatload of NIL money at his disposal to go chase those guys, being a new coach and being at a school where basketball has not been prioritized like that. So he feels better about the pieces he's put in place for this upcoming team. But I don't think anyone is looking at this as, hey, let's go out and make an NCAA tournament. It's let's make some progress. And last year's team made progress. There were times where you thought in non-conference, like, oh, my God, are we going to make 10 wins this year? I mean, and then you get into league play, and if you recall, had a shot at beating Arkansas, and Alabama in overtime, won at Rupp Arena. There were some things along the way where you, especially down the stretch, you feel like this team has made some great strides. But it was still so limited in the SEC caliber athletes you had there. And so he's made some additions. He's got guys that his priority was, I don't want you on my roster if you can't shoot. And we had a lot of guys last year who fell into the latter category. So he's really tried to identify some grad transfers and so forth who, regardless of position, can be a part of the offense from the standpoint of, knocking down open jumpers and getting longer, getting a little more athletic. But it is still going to be year 2 of a rebuilding process, and not a team that is coming in thinking, okay, we're going to take a leap and become a tournament team this year. I don't think that's realistic expectation-wise. As far as Muss is concerned, there's always going to be, from an outsider's perspective, the love and hate of it, because the flamboyance, the taking off the shirt, doesn't typically play well in other venues. But the way he built that roster and what he's done in taking that team back-to-back, I think at this point now, Sweet 16, hey, how you going to question those results and the ability to go out and recruit talent, either regardless of whether we're talking transfer portal or just, mining that high school scene in a state where we always knew you guys had a heck of an advantage because you have, 5-star and high 4-star talent in your backyard. You just got to keep it there. And we understand that problem because keeping it there's been the issue for so many years. It used to be if they were that good, you knew they were going to Duke or North Carolina. And then more recently, where Frank ran into troubles wasn't that. It was losing them to Vanderbilt and Tennessee and Auburn and Alabama. And that's really where the frustration grew for that program that, hey, guys, you went to a Final Four. Why can we not keep these kids in state now? And that was really where, Frank ran out of time and patience from the fan base and the administration because of that, because no one questioned his X and O ability. But that's what led to the reset. And in this day and age, it's going to be a hard reset because the roster, just implodes typically when a coach is pushed out.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.